I'm John Dennis. I'm running against Nancy Pelosi.
We have the most beautiful state in one of the most beautiful places in the world, and people are leaving.
I'm gonna catch you when all the cameras aren't around, and I'm gonna you up. I'm tired.
He's the chairman of the San Francisco GOP, and he's running against House Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Step back, everyone.
All right, come on in. Oh, I got my other glasses, my goofy glasses on. Come on in. John Dennis Report, Monday, April 5th, 2021. Come on in, everybody. Let's get in. Let's get in here. It's been a hectic day. I've been out of pocket for a little bit. You'll understand why in a second. It'll be my third topic today. But hope you're enjoying your Monday, whatever you're doing. Your after Easter Monday. Hope you had a great weekend and spent it with people you love, and dogs you love maybe, and pets you love. So a lot going on here. I put out a tweet this morning. It's funny. My own personal sort of rules for what to tweet about and what to ignore varies a little bit. I try and stay topical. Try not to get too snarky. I mean, my own account is my personal account. And so I understand, I'm a congressional candidate, and you've got to take into consideration some of these. That's an issue, and there are some things you can't get into. But every once in a while, I just see something that bugs me, and I'll make a comment, and then you never know which one of those is going to blow up. And so today, I commented on someone named Charlotte Clymer, who I knew nothing about. Now I just know a tiny bit about. Commented about Parler was like a radicalization for the right platform. And so, I don't know. Listen, I didn't spend a ton of time on Parler, but I was on there, and I saw what people were posting, and I saw what people were posting who had been banned by Twitter and other social media platforms, and I didn't find any of it terribly objectionable. I didn't see any massive coordination for anything terrible happening there. So when I saw a tweet that said that it was a hate platform and a platform for radicalization for the right, I was like, anybody who is against a speech platform, listen, I think those platforms, you should be able to go on and say whatever you like on Twitter. I think Twitter, despite the fact that it has had every opportunity, should have different doors for people to go in, different algorithms that you can tweak to moderate the level of free speech that you like or want. Parler's model was to allow the community to decide what was acceptable and what wasn't. And so I was on there, and I didn't see any radicalization stuff happening there. And so anybody who wants to get rid of those kinds of platforms, to me, is just you're exposing yourself as an authoritarian, and that's all you are. Because if you're not for, listen, the old liberals, say what you want about them, they were what they were, but they largely defended free speech, and this new crop, of course, doesn't give a damn about free speech. What they care about is control and power, and so of course they're going to attack platforms like Parler. So I made that comment, and then somebody who follows me said, "How is Parler, authoritarian?" And I said, "It's sarcasm." Well, as soon as I put that negative comment out there, I was out on an appointment and didn't get a chance to look at my Twitter feed for a while. But that comment got attacked by the blue check, like maybe a half dozen blue check marks went in there and started attacking me. And it's funny because they say, things like, "Oh, you're bad at this. You're bad at this Twitter." Meanwhile, they have like 100 followers, and I've got 45,000. Had used to have almost 70,000. That they attack that where they just go after you and say, "Oh, we're not authoritarian." And how is it that this climber person who I responded to responds back to me and says, "The entire January 6th insurrection." the armless insurrection was coordinated on Parler, which, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm in a bubble, and I'd be happy. I'd be happy to be corrected on this, even though that I was on that site that shows that I get almost about half of my news from the left and half of it from the right. But as far as I know, January 6th was largely coordinated on Facebook, not on Parler. And if you're a person who supports having the servers removed, undercutting Parler by removing its servers and its server contract, if you support that, then you're an authoritarian. You have not spent time on Parler. You don't know what was going on over there. Because none of this radicalizations, people were commenting frequently critically of the left, and the left doesn't like that, and so that's why they were going after it. And for this person to be so disingenuous as to suggest that there was some sort of plot to take over the United States, like she and her crew are not interested in doing precisely that, taking over the United States and subjecting us to all their whacked out laws and rules. For suggest that that's what that Parler was all about is preposterous and nonsensical. And these people have to do a little bit better than that. Now, I'm in a position where I'm wondering, should I really engage with these people? I've made 3 quick responses. And it's, is it really going to advance my candidacy against Nancy Pelosi? What does it really do for me? Other than, it allows me to vent some steam, because here I sit in San Francisco, the most liberal big city in America, the most progressive big city in America. And it is difficult sometimes. And I'm just sick of these, people. They're ruining this beautiful place. Even when I first moved out here, I moved here 30 years ago. San Francisco was a gem, and it was a Democrat town, of course. There were probably almost 2.5 times, almost quite 3, not quite 3 times the number of Republicans that there are now as a percentage of the voter database. But the kinds of Democrats who were here, there were lots more working class, blue collar union Democrat types who would never put up with the crap that's going on here now. But over the years, the progressives have made it more expensive to live here, so the place has been gentrified, and they've railed at it, saying, "Oh, the poor working class." Meanwhile, they've driven up prices of housing, so only more university types like them come here and continue to make the town even worse. So living in a place like this, I feel perfectly like every once in a while I need to vent at these folks and tell them that they're full of shit. And I'm happy to do that. So I'm not so sure that I'm going to continue to engage, because there really is no winning that argument. There's just really a self-indulgent, venting operation for yourself. But anyway, we'll see how it plays out. If you want to follow me on that, follow me on Twitter at @RealJohnDennis. Same on Instagram, by the way. In fact, I think I'm going to spend a little more time on Instagram moving forward. I have to say, this is sort of a quick aside. Something's not feeling right about Twitter these days. Like, it feels like something's off. Like the energy is off. I mean, you could blame it on Trump and but I think even I think what it really has to do with is that folks on the right who are on Twitter really feel crushed that they feel that the election was stolen, wasn't right. The outcome wasn't what it should have been, and I feel like that's taken away a lot of the energy from political activism on the right, because they're like, what's the point? if they're just going to continue to steal elections, what's the point? And, what they've received in response from the Democrats has been there's no widespread fraud. There's no widespread fraud. Notice they don't ever say there wasn't any targeted fraud, but the elections there's election integrity, even though they screamed that Russia stole the election for Donald Trump. And so the fact that they are not addressing those issues and some of those concerns tells me they're just going to keep trying to cheat as much as they can, and you're going to see politics move into a different direction. I don't know exactly what direction, but it's if people feel like the electoral process isn't fair, then they're going to look for other outlets for their activism and to protect their own interests. So there's that. All right. Anyway, we want to move on here to the next topic, which is Georgia, and there was a really good. Well, there's a couple of things here. There was a really good little Twitter. If we can put that up here, Mario. Yeah, put up that guy there. Yeah, so there's a really nice thread. Actually, it was Byron York of the Washington Examiner who pointed this out. So this guy Will, if I can highlight him here, I always go to the profile real quick and see what they've got. If they've got if they say some sort of artist or they have their pronouns in there, you're usually off to a bad start. But anyway, this guy's a correspondent for Slate. Says question everything. Okay, I'm with that. Could be like an old-time reasonable liberal, and that's exactly what you get out of it. He goes through this thread where he talks about what the facts, the good, and he's adding some of his own judgment in there. But he tells you what his premises are. He says easier voting is good. I'm with that. I think probably most of you are too. Partisan control is bad. Nobody disagrees with that, I don't think. And 3, this is interesting. Now, this has come from a lefty. ID is a reasonable and manageable concern. See, this is the kind of liberal you can talk to. You know what I mean? But the progressives are not this way. They just want to stomp on you because they know that they can't. Their arguments are completely ludicrous, and they can't win an argument, so they just want to use some form of coercion or force. So in any event, so here he goes down and he talks about, okay, here's the bad stuff that's in the Georgia law, in his opinion. Shorter window to request absentee ballot. I'm not so sure that's a bad thing, but okay, fine. Later mailing of absentee ballots. I don't see anything wrong with that either, but whatever. Limiting drop boxes and shorter runoffs, which could limit the window for early voting. Okay. All seems kind of lightweight stuff. Even if you agree with him, I don't necessarily. They seem like kind of lightweight things. Certainly, by the way, what he's describing is the bad stuff. This is the bad stuff. Does this kind of bad stuff warrant Major League Baseball removing its All-Star game, costing local businesses as much as $100 million? Is that bad stuff worth calling the state racist? Does what he described there warrant Delta Airlines coming out and saying whatever the things that they've been saying? I mean, so anyway, okay, now here's the good stuff. Requires at least one drop box per county, expands days, hours available for early in-person voting. By the way, I read the law too, and I read a couple of the summaries. This is like the best summary with some value-added, judgment in there, if you will. Requires polls with long waits to add staff or another precinct. By the way, why are there so many long lines in Georgia to vote? And if it happens a bunch of times, why can't they correct it? Why can't they go to states that don't have long lines and say, hey, what are you doing and what are we doing? Why are there long lines in Georgia? Okay. And online option for ballot applications. Okay, now here's what he's saying is overhyped. Only poll workers can give water to voters in line, and nobody can do it within 150 feet of a polling place. The idea is to limit influence, of course. If somebody, this is an old persuasion trick. Somebody gives you some small token as a gift, and you have a kind of a natural response to want to give something back, something to them in return. And so it's a little influence thing. If somebody gives you a bottle of water while you're waiting in line, or some food or something like that, maybe you're sitting on the fence and you say, oh, they were kind to me and they're representing such and such candidate or such and such party. I am going to, vote for them. But again, it begs the question, why are the lines so freaking long? I have to tell you, I haven't waited to vote, waited in a line to vote in, I can't remember. Like the longest line I think I've ever been in was like 3 people. What the hell's going on in Georgia? Anyway. And then there's something, election board now chaired by legislative appointee. Who cares? And then debatable. The government can no longer send unsolicited absentee ballot applications. I don't know. Go through this thread. Will Salatin. It's Salatin, Saletan, from 2 days ago, from 10/11 on April 3rd. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem to warrant the overreaction, except when you understand what the game is. And I don't think there's anybody who is even pretending anymore that the Democrats have the voters' interest at heart. They want to cheat, and when you do these kinds of restrictions, it makes it harder to cheat. And what this also tells you, too, is that there are lots of Republicans in Georgia who feel like something funky happened in the 2020 election. And so they're doing this as a way of, A, restoring some confidence in elections in Georgia, and B, they're covering their butts because Republican voters in Georgia are holding the legislators in that state to account and saying, you guys better do something about this, or else what's the point? It's just going to become a free-for-all. So anyway, I want to thank Byron York for pointing out this thread. I want to thank Will Salatin for writing it, and also for it as a consequence, an objective consequence, pointing out the fact that this hyperbolic talk about Jim Crow laws by the President of the United States is absolutely out of, not only just out of line and out of touch, it's really reprehensible. Here's a guy who's supposed to say that he was going to be the big uniter, and of course, race relations are much worse now than they were, according to recent polls. Much worse now than they were when Trump was in office. And, Biden's supposed to be the reasonable guy, and every single thing he does is skewed towards the Democrats. There's no concession whatsoever. Joe Biden is a bad guy, a really bad guy. I mean, people say, oh, he's got this kind of nice guy personality, and I see what they're saying. But what he does is he just uses that as a tool to do really terrible things, including effectively calling Republican legislators in Georgia racists, and then sicking corporate America on them. There's your Joe Biden for you. So, all right. Anyway, let's move on. Next topic. Last topic. Actually, one quick thing I want to mention here. Can you put this up? Can you see people see this?
Oh, yes, they can.
Okay. So I didn't see this segment. I just saw the questioning that Sharon Alfonsi from 60 Minutes did of Ron DeSantis, governor of Florida, yesterday in their 60 Minutes piece, which alleged that Ron DeSantis participated in a pay-for-play scheme by running vaccine distribution through Publix, which has about 800 locations in Florida. And, he answered her question as to how they got to the point where Publix was going to be a distribution point. They weren't first on the list. Walgreens and CVS were. And then they were about fourth on the list. But it had nothing to do with the fact that they were donors to his campaign. He was pretty clear about it. Of course, 60 Minutes deceptively edited it, and there are videos online that show side by side what 60 Minutes aired and what was actually said. And it's pretty disgraceful. You know, I mean, 60 Minutes, when I grew up as a kid, you always knew it was leaning to the left, and, you know, but this sort of stuff that they're doing now, Mike Wallace was one of those lefties who would argue the point with you, try and persuade you, respected persuasion, and respected a well-reasoned point of view that opposed his own. This 60 Minutes, this generation is completely reflective of the politics of the left today. They will lie, steal, and cheat to get the power that they want, to get whatever they want. And the fact that they are going after Ron DeSantis is actually an interesting sign for Ron DeSantis because they know that he's formidable in 2024, and they want to kneecap him now. And so the left is, in a coordinated effort, is going to keep going after him. And in fact, I would suggest that, and here's a prediction, an inconsequential prediction in the sense that I don't have any skin in the game, but my guess is that you're going to see many more hit pieces on Ron DeSantis in the coming months and year, because they really want to weaken him as a prospective Republican presidential nominee in 2024. And his record is outstanding and stellar. I mean, he told the establishment to bugger off, and we're not going to go on lockdowns, and we're not going to, early on, he said we're not going to go back to lockdowns, and their outcome has been very similar to California, which had very draconian lockdowns. So anyway, get a chance to see that. By the way, look at the side by side video where you see what was actually said and what 60 Minutes aired, and you understand what kind of world we're living in now. And lastly, for those of you who've been following the show, following the report, I have been vacillating over whether or not to get the vaccine, after a couple of conversations this weekend, I decided to try and get an appointment, and I was lucky enough to get one over at the Oakland Coliseum in a drive-through thing, and I got the appointment for today, and I've done this entire show post-COVID vaccine. I got the Johnson & Johnson one-shot vaccine, so I'm done. It's the one that I wanted. It was it's not the most effective, apparently, at least according, up to this point, but it was the one that used sort of the old traditional vaccination technology. And I really, I'm not a big fan of taking vaccines. I mean, I'll take vaccines if I have to. Like if I had to go, I'd go get a malaria shot or something if I was going to Africa, or if I was going to some place where they had yellow fevers, something like that. I would certainly take that precaution. I'm not, anti-vaccine in that regard. I just like to limit what vaccines. I want to be cautious about putting vaccines into my system. So like, I'm not a guy who gets the flu shot. I don't think it's really necessary. You get the flu, big deal. Scott Adams has sort of pointed out, and I think effectively, that these numbers of people who are supposedly dying of the flu every year are complete nonsense. I don't think people are dying from the flu. I think people get sick. I think if you're older and you're particularly vulnerable, you have a weak respiratory system, okay, maybe get a flu shot. But I have a ways to go to that. But coming back to the COVID vaccine, I'll tell you why I ended up deciding to do it. One, of course, my father died of COVID, as those of you who follow know. And, of course, he was in a different stage of life. He was 89. He had COPD. It started off as a mild case and sort of progressed into a little more serious case of it. Became very serious in the end because I think that's what ultimately killed him. But so that was one small thing. So the one thing that made it really clear to me was, if it wasn't before, was that COVID was a real thing. He went into the hospital without it. He got it in the hospital. He was in for something else. He was wearing masks, PPE, and got COVID in the hospital, and it killed him. From the time the test came back positive, he started having difficulty breathing on one day, got the test back positive the next day. From the time he got that test back, he was dead within 48 hours. And so that sort of is a bit of a wake-up call. But then recently we had a guy who served on our Republican Liberty Caucus Board. I'm the vice chairman of an outfit called the Republican Liberty Caucus. We represent the Liberty wing of the Republican Party, or that corner of the tent, of the big tent. And Dave was a former chairman, and he was still on the board as a regional chairman. And I saw him a little out at our last convention, which was June of 19, and he'd lost a bunch of weight. Looked good. He was fit, and he kept the weight off. But he got COVID in February, and it hit him hard, and then he passed away from it. And he's only like 2 years older than I am, and that really had an impact on me. And it really hit him badly. And I'd heard about it, and then I got the text one night. I was like, holy shit. So in any event, that and combined with my weight, I just thought, if I don't want to get COVID. I don't want to run the risk of being the one guy who gets COVID. I think it's 1 in like out of 100 cases or something like that. But in my age group and at my weight, maybe a little bit higher risk rate. So maybe it's 5%. Well, I don't want to take that chance of 5%. I'd rather take the vaccine. So in the end, that's what I did. I got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine about an hour and 20 minutes ago, and so far I feel fine. I expect I'm going to be a little bit tired later on, but we'll see how we feel. But some of I've kind of struggled with that decision, and that's what I decided to do, and I'll let you know how I feel in the days ahead. But that's my thought process. I'm sure you'll make up your own mind. Thanks for joining today. It was really nice to. That's why, by the way, that was why I was late, because I had that appointment. I had to run over and get it done. And we barely got the show in today. So thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it as always. Please follow me at Real John Dennis on Twitter and Real John Dennis on Instagram. And also, really more importantly, if you can subscribe to John Dennis Report on YouTube, just type in John Dennis Report into the search on YouTube, and then subscribe to it. We put some non-live stream content up there. You want to follow that. We're going to be having some off live stream interviews coming up, which I think you'll be interested in, and go into depth in some topics that I think you'll find interesting. So John Dennis Report on YouTube, and then also John Dennis Report on Facebook. And I think what we'll do is try and schedule one of these days where we just mostly take questions. Let's figure out how we're going to do that. Okay, Mario?
Okay.
Great. All right, everyone. Have a great day. I will see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. on Pacific Daylight Time and 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Until then, have a great day.